Hi guys, so we will soon be starting with plant physiology, and to understand plant physiology better there are three laws which not only for plant physiology, it's true for all ecosystems actually, but these three laws you will be visiting again and again when we do plant physiology, and so I thought let's clarify these three laws now. They are known as the laws of the limiting factors. The basic, very fundamental concept of a limiting factor is that any given rate of reaction is the most affected by the factor which is in the most limit, which means the most scarce element in a given reaction will be the most affecting factor for that rate of reaction. Correct? So now there were three scientists who gave us three laws: Liebig's law, Blackman's law, and Shelford's law. Liebig's law states exactly this, that if a plant is growing at a particular environment and it has X, Y, and Z in abundance already, supplying more of X, Y, and Z will not have any direct impact on its growth. However, if it has A and B in scarcity, so let's say in a region where the soil is extremely fertile, but there is not enough water, adding more fertilizer obviously is not going to affect growth, is not going to help in growth. However, if you add water, which was the limited factor or the scarce factor, growth will then be impacted. This is known as the law of minimum. So the resource that is available in the lowest minimum has the highest contribution to make in growth. Correct? This is Liebig's law. Now, Liebig's law further leads way to something which we call the Blackman's law of limiting factor. So, Blackman extensively studied photosynthesis, and when he did so, he figured that photosynthesis is directly related, or its rate of reaction, rate of photosynthesis is directly affected by multiple factors like the temperature, the humidity, the amount of chlorophyll in the leaves, obviously, the CO2 concentration, the intensity of light. These were the five major factors. Now, out of these, he saw that two factors, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the amount of light, the light intensity, had an intricate role to play, and he started, and we call them now the limiting factors of photosynthesis. Why so? It was seen that when we plot the rate of photosynthesis in a graph at a certain CO2 concentration, and from there on we increase the CO2 concentration. With the increase of CO2 concentration, initially the rate of photosynthesis will increase. But after a point, at the same low light intensity, it will plateau. Which means after a certain point, the effect of CO2 concentration, the increase of CO2 concentration will not change the rate of reaction or increase the rate of reaction for photosynthesis. However, at this point, if we increase this low light intensity into medium light intensity, then light somehow functions as the limiting factor. And the moment we change the light intensity, the rate of reaction is again going to increase to a certain extent. So now the CO2 level is increasing, but the change is happening due to the increase in the change in the light intensity. Because otherwise, with the increase also, we had a plateau in the rate of photosynthesis. Again, this thing will increase, but certainly plateau again. That is when again light becomes the limiting factor, and we increase the concentration of, the intensity of light into high light intensity, and we see that the photosynthesis rate will increase and go and plateau at certain point. Now at this point, where it plateaus again, light is no further a limiting factor because there is abundance of light. Now CO2 will again work as a limiting factor, where a certain increase in CO2 levels will increase the rate of photosynthesis. So CO2 and light has kind of an interchangeable role as a limiting factor when it comes to the rate of photosynthesis. And one more thing that is notable here is that CO2 concentration beyond the 1% in the total atmosphere will lead to a complete cessation of photosynthesis. Okay. Coming to the third law, the law of tolerance, Shelford's law. So these two laws, Liebig's law as well as Blackman's law talk about the limiting factor. It just talks about the factor which is in limit, which is in scarcity. However, Shelford says that no matter what resource we are talking about, every resource for a given organism or for a given population, if we talk about ecosystems, have a certain threshold, which he calls the zone of tolerance. So the zone of tolerance is a limit, a bracket within which, if the resource is available, growth will be sustained. Beyond either low concentration or high, beyond this zone of tolerance, the growth will completely stop. Right? So here he divided the zone of tolerance into 3 zones. He said that every nutrient or every resource has an optimal level, so the best functioning level where it will give the best effects, a minimum critical and a maximum critical. So maximum beyond which growth will stop, minimum beyond which growth will stop. And beyond these critical levels, you have the zone of intolerance. So if we were to plot it down, so if this is the gradient of the nutrient and this is the growth, then with increase in concentration, so this section is the zone of intolerance. This is when no growth is there. As the concentration of the substance crosses beyond the zone of intolerance and goes into the critical minimum, the growth will begin. And you will see maximum growth happening in the optimal zone. However, the moment the optimal zone is crossed and the limit has reached the critical maximum, is within the critical maximum, growth will begin to fall. Beyond which, again, there is going to be a zone of intolerance where there will be no growth. All these laws, these 3 laws, are extremely important in understanding plant growth, plant nutrient absorption, as well as photosynthesis. I hope this much was clear to you. We will start with plant physiology in the next videos. Thank you.